Live from the St. Louis Arena in St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Superpower Face-Off Series on Sports Channel America. Tonight's game features the Dinaмо Riga team from the Soviet Union against the NHL's St. Louis Blues. For Dinaмо Riga, Game 6 in a 7-game North American tour. In the first 5 games, 1 win, 3 losses, and a tie. Without question, the high point of this trip for the team from the Soviet Union, New Year's Eve at the Forum in Los Angeles, and a 5-3 victory over the Los Angeles Kings. And as far as Dinaмо Riga is concerned, the low point just 24 hours ago at a raucous stadium in Chicago. They would have expected to beat the Blackhawks, but it wasn't the case. Last night, Mike Keenan's team beat Dinaмо Riga 4-1. One thing has been very consistent for this team from the Soviet Union throughout their North American tour, and that has been great play from 21-year-old goalie Artur Irbe. New Year's Eve at the Forum, the great one, Wayne Gretzky lets her go. Oh, Irbe comes up with a magnificent save. And prior to that, in the stop at Edmonton, Messier sets up Jimmy Carson, and Irbe is there again. He has been terrific. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the arena. I'm Ken Wilson along with Herb Brooks. Tonight, more of that Soviet hockey against the NHL. Herb, we've seen a lot of Dinaмо Riga. They played 5 games already of a 7-game tour, and I think no matter how you look at it, it's been very successful.
Well, it really has. We've seen quite a few of the games. It's been an uplifting experience for both hockey clubs. The National Hockey League, it's good for them in terms of dollars for the players' pension plan, but more than that, it's an exchange of philosophy, exchange of style. It puts everybody in a win-win situation.
When you look at Dinaмо Riga, if you haven't seen them already, their big line to watch is Semenov, Yashin, and Lomakin.
Well, this line has played over 200 games for the Soviet national team, and if Dinaмо Riga is going to do anything tonight, that line has to lead the way.
And as far as the NHL and the Soviet Union is concerned, they're going to turn it around next September. 2 NHL teams, Herb, go to the Soviet Union.
Well, I think it'll be another uplifting experience for the National Hockey League. They're going to find the rinks bigger. There's going to be a stimulating training camp. There'll be good competition. And again, it proves that the game of ice hockey is truly a global game.
Well, we're looking forward to this action at the arena here in St. Louis as the Soviet NHL Super Series continues on Sports Channel. Here's tonight, up from Peoria, the IHL, Pat Jablonski for the Blues, and of course for the Soviet team, Artur Irbe.
Well, the guys, you know, they don't necessarily shoot all the time like say, our style of hockey. You know, a guy gets a chance to shoot it, he's going to shoot it, and so the goalie comes out and plays it. But their style of hockey, they'll get the goalie to come out. You know, you think he's going to shoot, and he passes it off to the other side of the net, and the guy shoots in an open net. You know, so you got to really be careful not to commit yourself to the shot, and to watch for the pass. And that you got to watch for the pass, but you know, play the shot also because he might shoot. So it's, you know, it's different.
First of all, I learned from these 12 matches with NHL teams that NHL players estimate Soviet goaltenders. That's the first lesson. And then I can add that we play not very good in all games, because with the strongest team we play better than with not strong team of the NHL, and we are eager to play better tonight and today after tomorrow.
We're set to go. The officials tonight, the referee, Alexander Fedotov, and the linesman from the National Hockey League, Ron Asselstein and Ray Scapinello. So a Soviet referee for this one here at the arena in St. Louis. Both of these teams played last night, as we mentioned. The Dinaмо Riga club played the Blackhawks in Chicago. The Blues had a Norris Division game. They lost to the Red Wings in Detroit last night. And one of the stories, Herb, is the fact that the Blues have called up a young man who is a Toledo, Ohio native, Pat Jablonski, to play goal. He's been in the IHL with the Peoria Rivermen all season long.
Well, he is a youngster, 21 years of age, first-year pro. He played in Windsor in the OHA, and he took his team last year to the Memorial Cup Finals. So the St. Louis Blues are very high on his potential.
And the Soviet team gathering around their young netminder, Artur Irbe. Not only is he young, he is small, 5'7". He was the Soviet National League Rookie of the Year last season. There have been some that have seen him on this North American tour and said, well, in a sense, he always reminds you of Jerry Cheevers. He reminds people of a great goaltender, no matter whom specifically he might remind you of.
Well, I don't know about Jerry Cheevers, but the Russians feel, regardless of style, they feel he's the heir apparent to their national team's job, and he might be the closest thing to a young Tretiak as they've seen in the Soviet Union in some years.
We're ready to go. Clip running for the face-off for the Blues. At center ice for Dinaмо Riga, Anatoly Semenov. The line of Semenov, Lomakin and Yashin we mentioned. Momesso and McKegney are the wings for the Blues. And the Blues shoot the puck in. Played at the defense. And the Soviet Dinaмо Riga team clears the puck out. Here's Glenn Featherstone, who played his first NHL game last night for the Blues, just dumping it to the defense. Selianin plays it to center ice. A feed for Sergei Yashin too far. And Paul Cavallini gives the puck to Ronnie. For the Blues, it'll be a bit of a feeling out, to be sure. There are not many Blues players who have what you would call extensive international experience. A feed for Yashin broken up. Then a loose puck and an opportunity for Lomakin, and Jablonski makes an early save. First minute of play here at the arena in St. Louis. Semenov with the puck, plays it back to the defense and Selianin. And both teams are changing players. The Blues take possession. Glenn Featherstone, big guy, 6'5", 230. Plays the puck in. Selianin knocks it down. Here's Peter Zezel to Brett Hull. And his shot deflects wide. Zezel hits the back of the net. Pazlowski's in front. And the pass fails to reach him. Here's Alexander Kirch for Dinaмо Riga against the veteran Gordy Roberts, who deflects his shot wide. Shingrok can't play the puck. Roberts does. And the Soviet Union doing some good forechecking. Brett Hull gets it to center ice and nothing more. A minute and a half gone, no score as Hull intercepts. He's got the booming shot to Zezel. Zezel to Hull, a deflection, and they score! Brett Hull.
That's a good one to get St. Louis off and running. They had a tough game last night. Come on, could score in the first couple of minutes. We see Peter Zezel get possession of the offensive blue line. Nice little pass. And here we get a little help as the thing bounces up in the air. And young Mr. Hull picks the thing right out of the air and backhands that in. And if there's one weakness of the Soviets is their inability to play very sound defense down deep in their defensive zone. St. Louis has got to take advantage of that.
Back to live action. Nikolai Varyanov circling with a puck as the Blues take a 1-0 lead. Brett Hull, the Blues' leading scorer in the regular NHL season. Here's an opportunity and a shot blocked by Richter on that drive by Shashov. And the Blues get the puck in. Here's Fedorko to Tuttle. Both Fedorko and Tuttle have not played in a long time for the Blues. Both have been out with injuries. And the Soviet Union, led by Varyanov, on a line with Zanarok and Shashov. Here's Varyanov trying to get it through the slot. He does. Back to the point. And a shot goes wide of Jablonski. And at center ice, both teams change players. The Soviet Union with the puck. Zinoyev Gets it ahead. Trying to move in and get a good shot is Vito Lynch, but just has to steer the puck wide. Here's Paul Cavallini, the former Washington Capital, who has excelled here in St. Louis. Losing it. Toman Isa's centering pass comes all the way back to the Dinamo Riga blue line. Selianen. Now an opportunity up the middle for Vito Lynch. A nice move around Featherstone. Then he'll have to circle on with Tomanis and Hates. Tomanis, Ilarmar Tomanis, 20-year-old, tried to move in front, and a weak backhand shot, and Jablonski the save. As Featherstone does some bumping, there'll be a penalty called against young Blues defenseman Glenn Featherstone. And that'll be the first penalty of the night. 1-0. The Blues lead the Soviet Union team. Blues getting a goal. Brett Hull from Zezel at 1:41. Here comes Dinamo Riga on the power play. Sergei Yashin ahead to Lomakin. Now at the point. Krimiskoy. And the puck just rolls in front of the goal, and Roberts clears it out for St. Louis. Pazlowski, Zezel, Roberts, and Gingras killing the penalty for the Blues. They lead it 1-0. They're playing shorthanded. Semenoff is the 6'2" center on this line that's come to the North American tour from Dinamo Moscow. They've been added to this Dinamo Riga team, and they've been a very potent line for Vladimir Yorzinov. Now Roberts intercepts. Yashin trying to intercept for Dinamo Riga does. And then it's intercepted by the Blues captain Bernie Fedorko and cleared down the ice. 45 seconds left in the Dinamo Riga power play. They trail 1-0. Zinoyev gives the puck off up to Nikolai Varyanov. He's a 29-year-old, a veteran, number 12. And Jablonski playing the puck off the glass. The Blues unable to clear it out. Varyanov setting up now in the Soviet Union power play, and Jablonski a good save on Zinoyev. And the play is whistled down right in front of the St. Louis net by the referee Alexander Fedotov. And apparently the goal came off the magnet heard behind Blues goaltender Pat Jablonski.
Well, the one thing that the Russians will do throughout this game, they'll do a lot of one-touch passing. They'll shoot off a pass, and they get everything as quickly, as high as tempo as possible. And it's one of the outstanding features of the game is the quick transition from offense to defense, and the quickness that really invades every part of their game. 18 seconds left in the Soviet power play, and the former Canadian Sergio Momesso clears the puck out. Here's Dmitry Zinoyev in his 7th season with Dinamo Riga. He's knocked down by Tony Herkus, one-time Hobie Baker Trophy winner, as the most outstanding college player when he played with North Dakota. Zinoyev over to Zinnerock. He'll play the puck in, and Brian Benning intercepts. St. Louis back at full strength, and they lead in this game here on their home ice 1-0. And the Soviet Union on the attack. Zinnerock plays it back and on to Varyanov, and that play broken up. Shudinov playing it back to defense mate Frolov, ahead to Varyanov. He runs into Paul Cavallini, trying to get the puck to Zinnerock and can't, and Benning clears it out. 6:10 gone, first period here at the arena in St. Louis, and the Blues lead 1-0. Here's Sergio Momesso with Cliff Ronning and Tony McKegney. Ronning, who's been a spark plug for the Blues, back to Featherstone. That shot blocked by Beliavsky. Here is Alexander Beliavsky against Paul Cavallini, looking for help. And the help comes from Akulinin, but he can't make a play, and the Blues just clear it out. Alexander Kirch, a 21-year-old for Dinamo Riga. The Beliavsky trying to get it back. He's taken out by Paul Cavallini. Pazlowski takes out Akulinin, but the Soviet Union keeps the pressure on. Now Brett Hull, the goal scorer, can't get the puck out. Durden keeps it in, and here's Featherstone clearing out to center ice, but nothing more, and the Soviet Union comes back as Zezel back checks Kirch. A pass fails to reach Beliavsky because of the astute play of Zezel.
The pass returned to Zezel. He can't play it. Here's Kirch. Kirch back to the center ice area, and the Soviet Union weaving Herb, setting things up. They're so patient.
Well, they're very patient. They use the width and the depth of the ice, and they really effectively use the neutral zone. They don't necessarily get the puck over the red and get rid of it. Glad their forwards will throw it back to their defense. Then they'll interchange, and then they'll make a quick counterattack.
Blues lead it here at the arena, 1-0. 1-0. The Blues lead Dinamo Riga. Ken Wilson, Herb Brooks on Sports Channel America at the arena in St. Louis. The Blues, Gino Cavallini driving it in, and Herbe leaves the puck for Krimiskoy. And Gino Cavallini intercepting on with Tuttle and Fedorko. Tuttle can't get to the puck. Gingras keeps it in. Gino Cavallini sweeps it wide. Fedorko takes a hit and battles in the corner. Tuttle, University of Wisconsin product, who's been out with an injured knee, fighting for the puck. He's a real scrapper. Now Fedorko, the veteran, tied up. And Tomatis can't get the puck out. Tuttle can't play it, and finally Dinamo Riga clears it away, and Gingras controls. 1-0. The Blues lead Dinamo Riga. Vito Lynch playing the puck ahead too far, and it's Gingras to Gordy Roberts. Dinamo Riga changing lines. And Gordy Roberts just getting the puck out of his end, and back for it goes Chudinov, the 26-year-old veteran defenseman for Dinamo Riga. Up to Sergei Yashin. And Dave Richter intercepts and clears it out. Zinoyev over to Chudinin, and the Soviet Union trying to gain good possession here.
It's a good opportunity for St. Louis to use their total bench, maybe get some people involved and give them some ice time that haven't been playing a lot. We see Tuttle coming off an injury, Fedorko coming off an injury. This game will help them get back into the swing of things for the upcoming NHL games.
Here is Benning after stealing the puck. 9 minutes gone, first period, and Herb Raglan and Craig Cox are both offside at the Soviet blue line.
Ken, the Soviets have changed a few sweaters and changed a few numbers, and they like to throw everybody up.
Isn't that the style? That's what everyone says. You don't know until they drop the puck which Soviet player is wearing which particular sweater. We know that's Oleg Zanarok, the 25-year-old. He's facing off here against Tony Herkus, and he wins the draw. Dmitry Frolov in his second season. Varyanov. His pass is behind Shashov at center ice, but he ends up with a puck. With Varyanov and Zanarok in front, and Jablonski forced to make a save. Cox's pass is broken up. Zanarok a drive well wide. The Blues lead Dinamo Riga 1-0 here in the first period. Frolov getting it ahead to Varyanov, a 29-year-old, then on to Shashov against Featherstone. Shashov moving in front, and then the drive by defenseman Durden goes wide. And Craig Cox headmans to Tony McKegney. A give and go, and McKegney from Herkus breaks right in, shoots, and a great serve, and on the rebound, Paul Cavallini scores. Paul Cavallini makes it 2-0.
This is one aspect where the Soviets are rather weak, and they're very vulnerable to aggressive forechecking, to aggressive play for loose pucks, and this will cause them time after time a lot of trouble. And the rebounds there, not necessarily Herbe's fault, got a little help from the goalpost, but you saw St. Louis reacting quick on loose pucks, and Herbe played that thing very well, stood up and was patient, and the rebound there goes off the inside pipe, and now all of a sudden they jump on a puck and they just bury that thing. And this is again a weakness of the Soviet system, a weakness of their style, and Paul Cavallini took advantage of it by coming in late, coming in intelligently, and looking for that rebound.
2-0. The Blues lead Dinamo Riga. Let's pause for a regional break. You're watching the NHL Soviet Super Series exclusively on Sports Channel. Scored for the Blues at 1:41. Paul Cavallini now scores at 9:51 from Tony McKegney and Craig Cox. 2-0. The St. Louis Blues lead Dinamo Riga. At center ice, McKegney, he's bumped, and Dinamo Riga controlling. Akulinin playing it back to the defense, and Selyanin on with Krimiskoy, and Ronning intercepts. Here's Momesso, a shot, a second drive. Irbay, the save. Puck off Momesso's skate, and then a save by Irbay. McKegney battling Krimiskoy. And Momesso back to the point. Roberts well covered, hooked down. And Selianen intercepts. Nice feed out on the wing. It's Kirch on the off wing, trying to cut in front around Gingras, who ends up with a puck. 9:10 to go in the first period before this intimate gathering here at the arena in St. Louis. Little clip rounding out to Momesso. The Blues change on the go, and Momesso just shoots the puck in.
This should be a very interesting game for the likes of Herkis and Ronings. Smaller type of center iceman. There's going to be a lot of ice out there for him to freewheel. The Russians aren't going to be overtly physical, but the abilities of Ronning and Herkis, they're going to show the Russians a few moves of their own.
At the point, Zhudinov keeps the puck in. Zezel trying to stop Tomanis, puck right in front. And now here's Peter Zezel, the former Philadelphia Flyer. The pass for Paslowski fails to reach him. He tips it in, and Zhudinov back. Chased by Brett Hull, who has a goal. Now Tomanis feeds the puck out at center ice. An opportunity for lanky Einars Ates. He gets the puck off to Vito Lynch. He's bumped by Richter, and Hull clears it out. The Blues not letting the Dinamo Riga team really do too much. Very close checking by the St. Louis Blues in this first period.
Well, what they're doing, their defense are moving up and closing the gap and not letting the Soviets find some holes in the neutral zone to jump into. So they're playing it extremely well and very intelligently.
Here is Semenov, a slap shot wide. Hit his teammate Yashin in the boot. Now Paul Cavallini chases the puck. Lomakin is there, and unable to keep the puck in at the point is Durden. Dinamo Riga trailing early in the first period here in St. Louis, 2-0. Paul Cavallini, who has a goal, steals the puck, looks for Fedorko, trying to get around Durden, and he can't. Yashin knocks down Paul Cavallini. Fedorko comes up, gets the puck, takes a hit, a breakaway for Gino Cavallini, but he can't get his stick on the puck well enough to get a shot away. 7:08 left, first period, 2-0 St. Louis. Andrei Lomakin, one of the great players of the Soviet Union, backhands it wide, and he had some mustard on that backhand shot. Semenov keeps it in to Lomakin, his slap shot, and Jablonski a good save. Jablonski has really not been tested all that much, Herb, here in the first period.
No, he hasn't. St. Louis has played very well without the puck, and as you pointed out earlier, they really closed the gap in the neutral zone, and the Russians are having a hard time getting anything going.
6:44 to go in the opening period. They can't. Raglan takes a big hit from Krimiskoy, and the Soviet Union ends up with a punt. Zanarok shooting it in, bumped by Roberts, and the Blues back. Gaston Gingras to Gordy Roberts. U.S.-born defenseman Herkis around to Herb Raglan. Blues tonight in this first period using a lot of their players, as Herb Brooks indicated, who do not see a lot of ice time or have been hampered lately by injuries. Zanarok knocked down by Cox. Here's Tony Herkis.
The Russian forwards put so much pressure on their defense that they say, you get me the puck, and they're moving all the time. Sometimes they should give them a little shorter outlet pass and be a little more, stationary to help them out when they're faced with a lot of pressure. They keep wheeling and dealing, and those Russian defensemen, I should say the Soviet defensemen, have to make that good outlet pass or they're in a lot of trouble.
Here's Tony Herkis. Over to Brian Benning. The screen shot, and Irbay gets a piece of that as Cox is sent flying. Here's Raglan to Benning. And his drive, and Irbay stops that. Varyanov for Dinamo Riga. The Blues putting a lot of pressure on Dinamo Riga in the first period. They have outshot the visiting Soviets 9-5. Well, fans, our Sports Channel fan call question tonight: would you prefer to see ties in NHL games broken by a shootout? If your answer is yes, call now, 900-300-6311. If your answer is no, you do not want to see NHL games broken by a shootout, call and register your no vote at 900-300-6312. Would you prefer to see ties in NHL games broken by a shootout? Not a bad question, Herb. I'm a bit perplexed by that myself. I've thought about that from time to time, and I'm not convinced I'd like it, though at times I'm tempted to think it might be a good idea when I look at those standings and see those ties mount up. Good save by Hervé on Paul Cavallini. McKegney ridden down. Blues keeping the puck all around Hervé. They lead it 2-0 in this first period. And Kirch gets it loose to Akulinen. Igor Akulinen leaves the puck at the defense, and as you've seen in this first period, the Soviet Union not hesitant to go back towards their goal when they're on the attack. Here is Kirch yanked down. There'll be a penalty.
See, they do throw it back, they do regroup, and then they'll take one person and put him at the offensive blue line, try to stretch the zone and try to catch the other team off balance.
An interference penalty at 15-13 on Blues defenseman Paul Cavallini, and Dinamo Riga has their second power play chance.
Here's what they were doing, as I mentioned earlier. They throw the thing back to their defensive blue line around there, and they play a little catch, and then they'll sneak one forward out to the offensive blue line. That's called stretching the zone. And then they try to look for that little seam, so to speak, for that breakaway pass. And at minimum, they're going to put pressure on the defense to pull them down, and that's exactly what happened. They're forcing the other team's defense all the time to close the gap, but when you do close the gap, they're trying to open it up by putting somebody out there and trying to get them in behind. And it's always a little chess game how the Russians use the neutral zone.
Akulinen centering a line on the power play, and Jablonski has to be alert, and he comes up with a fine save on Beliavsky right from the faceoff. Kirch on one wing, Beliavsky on the other. Akulinen is the center on Dinamo Riga's power play. This is Beliavsky to Kirch. Kirch back to the point. An opportunity from Krimiskoy, and he just plays the puck in. It's batted away, and here's Gordy Roberts killing the penalty with Gingras, Zezel, and also Pazlowski for St. Louis. Akulinen, Selyanin now, who's at the left point. Sergei Selyanin over to Krimiskoy, a shot and a good stick save by the youngster Pat Jablonski. And the Blues clear the puck the length of the ice and send out 4 fresh penalty killers. And Dinamo Riga makes some changes on their power play. This is Varianov. Beliavsky, too well covered by Fedorko. And he clears the puck the length of the ice. 54 seconds left in the Dinamo Riga power play. Over 3 minutes to go in the first period. And the St. Louis Blues lead the visitors from the Soviet Union 2-0. Zanarok. Shashov. Zanarok's in front, trying to move in, unable to. Shashov, but circling in the corner. The Blues have the front of the net well manned. Shudinov, and that hits the skater Richter. Quick shot on Varianov. 20 seconds to go in the power play for the Soviet Union. Oh, and a great save by Jablonski, and that low shot from the blue line by Sergei Shudinov, and he has the puck.
Well, it was a very good save. The Russians on their power play are running a little umbrella on the top. They were jamming 2 guys down deep around the net. And Jablonski didn't see that there, didn't have a real good look at it. He made an excellent save on that point shot. Little half V through a screen, showed very, very good poise on that shot.
The penalty to Paul Cavallini is over. 2:34 left, first period here in St. Louis. 2-0, the Blues lead Dinamo Riga. Stealing the puck, Momesso after good checking by Herkis. Sergio Momesso trailed by Brett Hull. Hates takes out Momesso in the corner. 2 big wingers there. Then Herkis dumps the puck in a crowd. Momesso trying to find an opening. Back to Roberts, and it's intercepted and cleared out by Hates. Sent back in, and the Blues are offside. 2:10 to go in the first period. St. Louis up 2-0.
Well, on the Soviets' power play, they like to use a little umbrella on the top, and they'll take 1 or 2 of their forwards and put them down deep for tipping and screening, and rebounds. Makes it awful difficult for the goalkeeper to pick up the trajectory of the puck and the view of the puck. And one of the key things of Jablonski is his knowledge, of his position. For a youngster, they say he has a good feel, for the play in front of him and his reference to his goal and to the pipes.
Paul Cavallini breaks up a play, and then the puck deflects into the crowd. And we'll have a face-off deep in the Soviet Union zone with 1:54 to go in this opening period. Of course, the Blues with the brother duo, Paul and Gino Cavallini. And of course, a rookie coach.
Well, it was quite a night for him the other night when they retired his sweater, hoisted the banners to the Raptors here, and then his team went out and got behind the North Stars 4-0, but they regrouped and came back, and the last 40 minutes they battled the North Stars a 5-5 tie. But he's going to do a wonderful job here in St. Louis, and I'm sure his players will personify the way he played with just a lot of intelligent hard work.
The hopes of this franchise depending in great part upon Brian Sutter. A second try for Gino Cavallini, and he's stopped by Hervé. Durden run into and plummeted down by Gino Cavallini. A minute and a half to go in the period. Hates for the Soviet Union over the line. And now Fedorko for St. Louis ahead to Tuttle. Oh, he's drilled by Durden. And one good turn deserves another.
Well, the whole St. Louis bench came up, said, who was that? Get his number, what have you. But the Russians, the Soviets can, play a very physical game. They're in shape, they're strong. But they're not used to the aggressive physical forechecking that we've seen St. Louis do this evening.
Gino Cavallini shot blocked. And brother Paul has a shot blocked as he runs into Frolov. Number 10 for Dinamo Riga, who threw the big check, I'm sure a retaliatory check as much as anything. And he's drilled down there is the veteran Vladimir Durden. This is a very young team, and Durden, number 10 at age 30, is the oldest player on the Dinamo Riga team. His 14th season with Dinamo Riga. Now a chance for Yashin along with Lomakin. Yashin in front. Oh, and Jablonski. A dandy poke check.
That's what I'm talking about. His knowledge of his position and to use that stick is very important. You don't see that stick work by a young goalkeeper. He made an excellent poke check. Yashin cutting across that goal line and trying to get good position in front of the net to stuff it.
Down to 15 seconds to go in the first period at the arena in St. Louis. And the Blues lead Dinamo Riga 2-0. Tony Herkis intercepts. Herkis to Herb Ragland. His shot, he scores! Herb Ragland!
Earlier in the series, we pointed out if this Russian goalkeeper has any problems, you're going to see the problems will occur on the short side or possibly the 5-hole. The 5-hole being between his legs, and that caught the short side. Now, a young goalkeeper or any goalkeeper, again, that knowledge of where he is in reference to those pipes and the angles are very important. And Ragland just steps in. He can shoot a puck. He's not noted for being a goal scorer, but he's a big, strong forward, and when he tees it up, he can get good wood on it. And Herb Ragland found that little hole on the short side. And the goalies, as they move from side to side and come out to cut those angles, again, the knowledge of those angles are so important, and that takes years to get down. So you can't fault, a young goalkeeper on those things. It's just an awful hard thing to add to one's game plan.
And with just a few seconds to go, the puck dropped. And the first period here at the arena in St. Louis comes to an end, and the Blues were very much dominating.
Well, they are, and I think the reason for it, they were very aggressive in their offensive zone. They took the body, and in the neutral zone, they're trying to close the gap so the Russians aren't having that little soft spot or those holes to jump into. They're taking those passing lanes away from them, forcing the Russians to put one player way out to the offensive blue line, trying to pull the Soviet defensemen out. And as I said, that's a chess game, and right now, the St. Louis Blues are winning this chess game.
In the first period, shots on goal. The St. Louis Blues 13, Dinamo Riga 8. The Blues getting 3 goals. Hall at 1:41 from Zezel. Paul Cavallini made it 2-0 at 9:51 from McKegney and Cox. And then Herb Ragland at 19:55 from Cox and Herkis. And after a period, 3-0 Blues. Now let's go back to Lee Zeidman.
Thanks, Ken. Coming up between periods, we're going to update the regular season NHL action.
I'm Mike Ruzioni. I'll have some thoughts on the Soviets' performance in that first period.
We've got the expert analysis, scores, and highlights ahead. Sports Nightly between periods after this.
Is excitement worth
to Sports Nightly Studios. Lee Zeidman along with Michael Ruzioni. We're contemplating what we think is a case of schizophrenia on the part of this Dinamo Riga team. They take on Calgary. They play well against Edmonton and LA. Then they get hammered by Vancouver and Chicago, and now the St. Louis Blues.
Figure it out. I can't figure it out either. But you know what's interesting to me is the way the St. Louis Blues are playing against the Soviets. Herb talked about it, how they're closing the gaps. They're not giving the Soviets that much room. And also what they're doing are the little things. The things that I always think that makes good hockey teams, very good hockey teams, is the ability to do the little things. Let's take a look at a little thing that St. Louis does. It leads up to their first goal. Tony McKechnie, a little give and go. Just a real nice play, creates a scoring opportunity. The puck's going to come out and Cavallini's going to score. But here's the little thing that's so nice. Pass, right back, routine, something you learn when you're playing youth hockey. Give and go. You get the puck, move it to the open man, and go. He'll give it back to you. The save was made by Airbay, but then the puck came out and a goal was scored. So you're talking about little things that, like I said at the beginning, that I think St. Louis is doing in this game. They're not doing anything fancy. They're not doing anything flashy. They're just moving the puck. They're closing the gaps. They're playing a good, tight, forechecking system, good neutral zone play, and that's why they're leading.
Well, maybe St. Louis has come on because they've realized they're carrying the flag for the NHL. This superpower face-off series is currently tied. Going into tonight's match, the NHL and Soviets each had 4 wins, 4 losses, 2 ties in the 10 games played. So tonight, the Blues, game number 11, they could put the NHL on top in the series. Of course, the winner of the Superpower Face-Off Series will be awarded Sports Channel America's Friendship Cup following the final match of the tour. Yes, Mr. Ruzioni has an Olympic ring, but he'll never have his name on the Friendship Cup. The Red Army faces Buffalo Monday in the last match, and this is now a race, Mike.
Well, I may take this trophy home with me, first of all. That would fit nice on my mantle. But it's going to be an interesting race, and I still think the National Hockey League teams are going to prevail. And it's easy to say now with St. Louis leading by a score of 3-0. But I think the series now hinges upon the teams, the working class teams in the National Hockey League, the Hartford Whalers, the Buffalo Sabres, and they're going to be grinders. They're going to be physical. They're going to play, especially have to play in Buffalo in a little building. And I think you're going to see the trend start to go to the National Hockey League teams.
Well,
but
it's been a grueling tour for the Soviets in their defense.
I don't know.
Well, all the remaining Superpower face-off matches will be carried live and exclusively on Sports Channel America. Doubleheader Saturday, Dinamo Riga facing off at Minnesota, ending its tour at 2:30. Then Saturday night at 8 o'clock, Hartford welcomes the Central Red Army to the Civic Center. Phone lines are open if you'd like to take part in tonight's fans call. We want your opinion. Would you like to see tie games in the NHL broken by a shootout? Yes, dial 1-900-300-6311. No, dial 1-900-300-6312. Dial carefully. Each call costs 75 cents. Some proceeds will go to Armenian earthquake relief. And final tabulation comes after the game on Sports Nightly. We're going to take a break, then check tonight's regular NHL action.
Herb Brooks, Artur Irbay, who has been sensational on this North American tour, looking to rebound after that first period.
Well, you can't really fault him on any of the goals, really, from Brent Hull's goal at the start where he picked a little rebound out of the air. Hull was, nobody took his body. Cavallini jumps into a loose puck. He was screened on that situation. The third goal, well, you might say that maybe should have been out a little bit more. He had covered that short side. Goalies don't like to get beat on the short side. But basically, for a youngster who's played a lot of hockey over the last 10 days, I think he's playing very well.
And Dinamo Riga controlling the puck. Unable to get it out, Selianen. Keeping it in, Momesso. Ronning chases after it, and he dumps defenseman Kremiskoy. And no call. An opportunity here for Semenov on this big line of Anatoly Semenov, Sergei Yashin, and Andrei Lomakin. The big potent line for Dinamo Riga. And the Soviet team just dumping the puck in, Glenn Featherstone.
Well, that is one of the changes. We talk about a hybrid style of play, and the Dinamo Riga, they will dump the puck a little bit more. The Soviet Red Army team will dump the puck a little bit more, and they'll dump it for what they feel is a very intelligent reason. And it's not
Gordy Roberts at center ice.
Excuse me, Ken, it's not something you're just going to do inadvertently for no other reason. They're looking and said, well, we're going to do it to put some pressure on them. And it just, again, it's not a first alternative, but it's an alternative that they'll use. But they never would take that alternative before. And I think this is added to their game plan because they're a little more versatile right now. And they don't necessarily always regroup, you know, at their offensive blue line.
Sergei Selyanin, the 22-year-old defenseman, and of course these Soviet players, nearly to a man with good size. Selyanin is 6'2", 200 pounds.
The Russians feel that maybe he has some national team potential. 15 players of this Dinamo Riga team from the Soviet Union under the age of 23.
Well, you can't emphasize enough how young this team is. Kirch, only 21, spun around by Gordy Roberts, who teams on defense with Gingras.
But we'll also emphasize that the St. Louis Blues have some youngsters, including a 21-year-old goalkeeper this evening.
Pat Jablonski may be spelled before the night is over by 22-year-old Vincent Riendo, who is an NHL rookie. If you joined us late, Jablonski called up by the Blues to play tonight from Peoria, the International Hockey League. He's a first-year pro. Here is Kirch. He's well covered. Beliavsky can't get the puck, and it's cleared out by Herkus to Raglan, and he'll just shoot it in. In the first period, Brett Hull, Paul Cavallini, and Herb Raglan all scoring for Brian Sutter's Blues. Here's Dave Richter on with Brian Benning, Steve Tuttle, Gino Cavallini, and Tony Herkus. Ahead to Gino Cavallini. He'll let her go, and Herbe makes the save on Gino Cavallini.
Gino Cavallini'd like to get another goal. He's played with more confidence at every turn of the season. The 26-year-old from Bowling Green University scored a dramatic goal when he was at Bowling Green, the fourth overtime in the NCAA finals against the University of Minnesota Duluth. And he can shoot a puck. He's not a great goal scorer, but he's got a heavy shot, and he generally gets it on net.
Early in the second period, 3-0 St. Louis.
I like what they call Paul and Gino Cavallini. You know, the Flying Cavallinis, they're calling them here in St. Louis.
They certainly are, and the fans love them. The shot by Chudinov blocked. Back goes Zinoyev, the 23-year-old. He's forechecked. Gino Cavallini steals the puck. In front is Tuttle, and he can't get a good shot away. Now off Tuttle's skate, trying to get it out. Shashoff can't. Brian Benning winds up, and his shot is blocked. And the Soviet Union clears the puck out. Coming up to the 3-minute mark in the second period. Benning to Steve Tuttle, to Bernie Fedorko. He's well covered, and the Soviet Union gets the puck out. Gino Cavallini behind the play, a booming check, sending Chudinov down. Dave Richter just bumped, nudged from behind, and Tuttle carries in, and the rookie can't complete the play. Selyanin for the Soviet Union. The Dinamo Riga defenseman to center ice, lets a long shot go, and the save by Jablonski. Now Glenn Featherstone played just one NHL game. That was last night at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. The burly defenseman to Zezel, too far for Richter. Here's Tomanis, the 20-year-old. Selyanin to Hates, and too far. Hates pass for Vito Lynch. Dave Richter with the Blues up 3-0 to Zezel. And he pokes the puck ahead to Brett Hull. Brett Hull against Selyanin, and he can't make a play, and the Soviet Union moves on the attack. Ari Vito Lynch to Einars Hates. Hates drops the puck, but right to Brett Hull. Hull has Pazlowski breaking to the net and drills it wide. Puck to center ice, shot in by Featherstone and Frolov for the Soviet Union. Dinamo Riga trailing 3-0, and back will go Paul Cavallini as the Soviet Union club changes players on the go. Paul Cavallini with a goal in the first period to Peter Zezel. He'll just flip the puck in off the glass. Frolov for Dinamo Riga. Ill-advised pass. Momesso shoots on a great glove save by Artur Herbe. Blues lead it here at the arena in St. Louis, 3-0.
And this is an excellent example of what the Soviets think about this young goalkeeper. Poise, stand up, good glove hand. Momesso intercepts a bad clearing pass, gets a good shot off, point blank. Herbe didn't panic. He stayed right with the shooter. And again, he's known for a real cat-like glove.
3-0. St. Louis leads it. This Dinamo Riga team losing last night in Chicago by a score of 4-1. They'll finish their North American tour with a matinee game Saturday at the Met Center in Bloomington against the Minnesota North Stars. They have but one win in their first 5 meetings, also a tie in Calgary, their first game. Chudinov keeps the puck in, then bumped by Momesso. Ronning can't get it out. Here's Semenoff, and the shot deflects wide off Shingra. Well-traveled Tony McKegney, who had his biggest NHL season a year ago, up to Momesso, and he just clears it out.
Well, it's going to be tough for the Soviets to get back into this game. The line of Yashin, Semenoff, and Lomakin will have to do it, and it's going to be tough because they're just... St. Louis is checking them rather closely. They're not going to give them that little extra room that they like to have to operate in. And if they don't score, I don't know who on Riga's team is really going to score.
In front for Momesso, tipped away by Chudinov. Lomakin behind the net, trying to get the puck to Durden. Can't. He'll go after it himself, and Momesso makes a nice play. Chudinov. This line on for the Soviet Union that Herb mentioned, Semenoff between Yashin and Lomakin, played on the '88 Soviet Olympic team, and the play is offside, and there's 14-14 to go here in the second period. Again, our Sports Channel fan call question tonight is, would you prefer to see ties in NHL games broken by a shootout? If you would, your answer is yes. Call 900-300-6311 to register your yes vote. If you answer no, you do not want to see shootouts in the NHL, call 900-300-6312. Ken Wilson with Herb Brooks in St. Louis. And it is 3-0. The Blues lead Dinamo Riga in the second period as Benning is stopped. Grimskoy's pass to Kirch. He shoots. Jablonski the save. Beliavsky trying to avoid a check. Some nice moves. Moves in front, then a sweep check. Akulinin, oh, just wide. Igor Akulinin had an outstanding opportunity there.
Well, the Soviets are going to have to forecheck a little more aggressively to get back into this game. They turn their whole forechecking patterns over to their two wingers, and their center iceman is hanging out really in the high slot. And the Soviets think they can win those little one-on-one battles down deep. I would like to think to get back in to score some goals, they might have to overload and create some manpower advantages down deep in their offensive zone.
Raglan with Herkus and Cox causing the Soviet Union a lot of problems, and Tony Herkus scores. Tony Herkus, 4-0 St. Louis.
Well, we talked earlier, this is the type of game that the real finesse players of St. Louis Blues are going to get some opportunities to do something. But Tony Herkus and Cliff Ronning specifically, see Tony Herkus again just reaching around that net, a little wraparound. And the problem is nobody picked him up. And when nobody picks this person up, he's awful dangerous. He's had a lot of international experience coming from the Canadian Olympic team program. He's played in the university, he's played throughout Europe, and he'll know how to play the Soviets. He can play their game very well.
Tony Herkus, the North Dakota product, as we mentioned earlier, Hobie Baker Trophy winner a few seasons ago, making it 4-0 St. Louis. Now 7 minutes have gone by in the middle period. Tuttle trying to center, Fedorko after the puck, and he's beaten to it by Oleg Zanarok. Zanarok up the far wing, and Fedorko gets in the way. Varianov into the corner. He's got Shashov in front. He's well covered by Gino Cavallini. Paul Cavallini can't clear. And Dinamo Riga trying to set things up. They're down 4-0. And the body's falling right and left, and Gino Cavallini gets the puck, and the pass comes out to center ice, brought in offside by Chudinov. We're at the arena in St. Louis. 4-0 Blues. On Sports Channel America, women's college basketball excitement comes your way when the Tennessee Lady Volunteers square off against Vicki Orr and the Auburn Tigers. That is at 8 Eastern and 7 Central. The Volunteers against the Auburn Tigers. Great Southeastern Conference action right here on Sports Channel America. Check your local listings for the regional game in your area. That should be a good one. The Tennessee Lady Volunteers against the Auburn Tigers. Here it's Dinamo Riga from the Soviet National League against the NHL St. Louis Blues. The Blues have the puck and the lead 4-0 here in the second period. And out comes Irbay to clear the puck to center ice.
Well, again, this is sort of a new little wrinkle in the Soviet-style goalkeepers. They've been looking at some of the fine goalkeepers in the National Hockey League. They're using their stick more to handle the puck. They're coming out, helping out their defensemen. Before, they'd always stay home. They'd never really, leave that net or that crease. A little bit more active now.
Peter Zezel. In front, Airbay the save on Pazlowski. Zezel has that great leg strength. Now Hall is in the slot. Pazlowski looking for Hall, back to Zezel. Frolov can't keep up with Zezel, hooks him. Zezel gives him the eye, and they pin the puck in the corner. And the referee says, play it. Or something like that in Russian.
A little interesting thing, Airbay lost his stick and he's yelling at his defense. Someone's got to get him a stick. Every time a defenseman doesn't have a stick, a forward gives it back. You got to keep handing sticks backwards towards that goal all the time.
Domatis, Pope checked. In front. And oh, what a save by Jablonski on Vito Lynch. Oh, a dazzling save on Harry Vito Lynch. Back the other way, Hall. He can let him go. He shoots. And he tries to go upstairs and goes over the crossbar. 4-0. The Blues lead it.
Well, the way Brent Hull can shoot a puck, and he's a pure goal scorer, and he's got a cannon as he shoots it well as anybody in the National Hockey League. I thought he was going to just pull the trigger, but he fought for better shooting percentage, a little better shooting angle, and then he couldn't control that shot as it went high over the net.
For Dinamo Riga, Semenov, Yashin, and Lomakin are on the ice against McKegney, Ronning, and Momesso. Momesso to the net, and he can't turn the pass by McKegney on goal, and then Benning shot, gloved by Artur Irbay. Perkis scoring at 6:46 from Raglan and Cox here in the second period, and Cox now is having a big night for the Blues. So the face-off near Artur Irbay. Ronning trying to win the draw, can't, from Akulinen. Zinoyev ahead too far for Kirch, and Richter sends it right back to the Dinamo Riga defense. Here is Ronning, one of the smallest players in the NHL, just getting it in. 10 minutes to go in the second period. Akulinen. And offside on the right wing is Beliavsky, and we'll have a neutral faceoff.
It's one of the few times the Russians really made a quick transition from defense to offense, and they just one touch of puck just inside their blue line, little interchanging, crisscrossing at the offensive blue line, trying to isolate one of St. Louis defensemen and bring that third forward in there unchecked. But they were just offside by a step. The thought process was good, the execution not as well as they'd like.
For Dinamo Riga, this of course is their first visit to North America. As we mentioned, Game 6 tonight of a 7-game North American tour. And Dinamo Riga to center ice. Beliavsky takes a big hit from Featherstone. Akulinen leaves the puck for Kirch. And the shot, and Jablonski the save on Chudinov. And the Blues come to center ice. Cox moves around Zinoyev, and the shot wide, and Paul Cavallini keeps the puck in. Cox mixing it up in front with Chudinov, and they're really looking at each other. Chudinov is ready to go as he drops his stick, and Craig Cox, who's known as a fighter in the NHL, does not drop his stick, as if to say, I thought we weren't supposed to fight with the Soviets. The Blues lead it 4-0. Let's pause for a regional break. You're watching the NHL Soviet Super Series exclusively on Sports Channel. Brooks roughing penalties to Chudinov and Cox.
Well, I think Chudinov didn't know what to do. He caught a good right or a left hook, and he gave one right back. Now he's saying, wait a minute, we don't do this in the Soviet Union. I'm a little unsure, but Craig Cox knew what he wanted to do, but he showed some poise, and he said, hey, I'm not here tonight for that. And he just let it go.
Irbay, a good save on a deflection by Gino Cavallini. Varyanov trying to get the puck in. Jablonski turns it away. Shashov tied up by Gingras. Centering, Barionov shoots, and a fine save by Jablonski. Soviet Union unable to keep the puck in, and Barionov for Dinamo Riga off to Durden, and intercepting Gino Cavallini. There's 8:40 to go in the second period. It's 4-0 St. Louis.
St. Louis's defensive zone, they're bringing back a forward the way they should, a defensive forward along with their two defensemen, playing very sound deep. And only the Russians are only sending 2 in there.
Oh, tunnel test. Airbay, as does Gino Cavallini, who's had many scoring chances tonight. And Airbay at the post grabs the puck and freezes it for a face-off.
I was saying, Ken, the Russians are sending 2 in, which you should. You don't want the third forward to get caught, but they've got to put just a little bit more pressure because St. Louis is outnumbering, Dinamo Riga down deep 3-2 in their favor. There's a good save and a good move and good presence by the young Soviet goalkeeper, Arthur Airbay. We don't want to be redundant and talk about this youngster over and over because we saw Pat Jablonski make a couple great saves also, and both these youngsters are matching good saves and good saves. And the only question right now there to Arthur Airbay is maybe Tony Hersick's wraparound goal, where he didn't use it rather effectively as a weapon, as an asset that you must use in tight when you can't, square up to a shot or cut off angles, and then the stick a la Billy Smith will come in very, very as a useful tool or an asset, and they must be used to give that goalkeeper the total being.
Zezel steals the puck, and Hall shoots it wide. Benning keeps it in. Pazlowski for St. Louis. Away from Selyanin. Then Zezel bumped. Selyanin is all over Pazlowski. Benning's right in front, and the pass just fails to reach him. Benning unable to keep the puck in. Less than 8 minutes to go in the second period. A quietly confident crowd now here in St. Louis. 4-0 Blues. Brian Benning into the pads of Airbay. The St. Louis Blues have never beaten a visiting Soviet team. This is only the third time they've played them. Zezel shooting the puck up, and that may have caught Vito Lynch in the face as he goes to the Dinamo Riga bench. Here is Pazlowski. He's got Zezel with him, moving towards the goal. Zezel now trying to center the puck, unable to. Here's Pazlowski. Zezel behind the net. Brett Hull is in front, but the play broken up. Now Zezel gets the puck back. Here's Brett Hull. He's bothered by Semenov. Hull moves in front. The puck handed to him, now to Pazlowski. Zezel trying to center again. Hull gets the puck. Can't get a good shot away. It's loose, and somehow they fail to beat Airbay. And the puck cleared out by Anatoly Semenov. Less than 7 minutes to go in this period. 4-0 Blues. Semenov on with Yashin and Lomakin. This is Lomakin, the 24-year-old, only 5'9", and McKegney intercepts for the Blues to Ronning, and that doesn't click. Here's Ronning after the puck.
You'll see many of the Soviet forwards of the 5'9", 5'8", 5'10", 5'11" type. They're not as big as the forwards in the National Hockey League. Very well conditioned, very strong. But there's been a lot of fine, small National Hockey Leaguers that get overlooked, somewhat just because of their size. A little different style of game. But here we're looking at a young man, Cliff Ronning. St. Louis has high hopes for him. He's not big, but he's awful talented.
In front for McKegney, and he's spun around by the pass. Lomakin. And the puck to center ice. Blues with a 4-0 lead. Goals from Brett Hull, Paul Cavallini, Herb Ragland, and in this period, Tony Herkis. Paul Cavallini to Cliff Ronning. Cliff's seen a lot of ice time tonight. The international style really fits little Herb Ronning, or I should say little Cliff Ronning.
Well, I think as time goes on, you'll find that this young man can play in the National Hockey League. He just got to go to his assets, go to his legs, and he should make the jump.
Play stopped for a face-off in the St. Louis end. 5:25 to go here at the arena in St. Louis. And Dave Richter, the University of Michigan product, to Brian Benning as the Blues get the puck out.
St. Louis playing a very intelligent game, and the key thing what they're doing, as you see right now in the neutral zone, their defense are moving up, closing the gap, and there's very few little holes for the Russians forwards to jump into.
Selyanin. Akulinin. He's stopped by Gino Cavallini. And the Soviet defense covering up. Belyavsky too far for Kirch. Tuttle bumped by Akulinin. Here's Alexander Kirch centering, and Richter there to intercept. Nowhere to go with the puck. And the Soviet Union team keeping the puck in, and then Benning gets it out. Krimiskoy. Zinoyev gets it right back.
What I like about St. Louis's play tonight, they're just not showing up, say this is just an exhibition game, and the heck with it. They're showing a lot of pride in their play tonight. They're playing with some good intensity, and all of a sudden these things happen to carrying over. We saw the New York Islanders struggling, and they just gave a great hockey club a run for their money in the Red Army team in the 3-2 loss at the Island in New York, and that's carried over. You can't take a night off and play this game effectively.
This St. Louis team has really struggled lately in the NHL regular season. They have only one win in their last 9 games. They just have completed a 3-game road trip, losing all 3. A chance for Zanarok, and he's well covered. Raglan, an outlet pass too far.
Ken, that's why this game is very important to St. Louis. Even though it's an exhibition game, they want to get that good feeling back. They want to feel good in that locker room. They want to have this thing carry over to their next NHL game.
And they've got a tough one coming up, by the way, Saturday night here against the Philadelphia Flyers. Herb Raglan shooting the puck in for the Blues.
They're all tough in the National Hockey League. Parity is here, and it's great for the fans.
Brett Hull knocks the puck down with his glove, and a hand pass stops play. 3:15 to go here in the second period. 21-year-old goalkeepers, Artur Irbe for Dinamo Riga and Pat Jablonski for the St. Louis Blues.
Well, Jablonski was a 6th choice in 1985, 138th player picked, good size, stand-up type of goalie, very knowledgeable of his positioning. And the one asset that Jablonski has, he's playing for Wayne Thomas in Peoria, and Wayne Thomas being a 12-year veteran as a goalkeeper in the National Hockey League, and that will really help this young man's development.
4-0, the Blues lead Dinamo Riga. Paslowski, originally with Montreal, behind the net to Peter Zezel on a line with Brett Hull, and Frolov intercepts for Dinamo Riga. Here's another former Canadian, Gingras, shooting the puck in. Dearden. Tomanis with Vito Lynch. And Hates shot off the blocker of Jablonski. Peter Zezel, who many feel will someday be the captain of the Blues, gets the puck out. Hall knocks down Tomanis.
Well, that was a big trade for Ronnie Cron to give up Bullard, who's put some big numbers on the board in the National Hockey League for young Peter Zezel, but they're very happy with Zezel because he's providing them something in the locker room they were looking for.
He's quite a leader, a very confident young man, Peter Zezel. Yashin, and he tests Jablonski. Yashin set up by line mates Semenoff and Lomakin.
Saw something there that the Russians do very well. They set up that drop pass, and they had 2 of them in succession, and then they shot right off that.
Down to 1:40 to go in the second period. There's been 1 goal. Tony Herkus scored it at 6:46. Ronning keeps the puck in, and it's batted to center ice. Blues got first period goals from Hall, Paul Cavallini, and Raglan. Ronning forechecking, steals the puck away. Unable to get it in front. Now Tony McKegney to Ronning. And good use of the stick that time by Irbe.
He uses it very well to his forehand. He has trouble a little bit to his backhand.
Momesso, another former Canadian. In front through the goal mouth. Here's Ronning. Momesso. And the shot deflects wide, and Irbe pounces on it. Down to 1:01 to go in the second period. St. Louis leads it 4-0. Blues lead it 4-0, and they have tested Artur Irbe beyond that with 23 shots on goal for St. Louis.
Well, they're going to have to change their forechecking style. the Russian Soviets have to change it to put more pressure on St. Louis in their offensive zone. Because with their system that they're employing right now, it's going to be hard for them to get back into the game and make up this deficit.
And it's Akulinin. He's got Beliavsky in front with Kirch. And play stopped by the referee, Alexander Fedotov. From Toledo, Ohio, Pat Jablonski played his junior hockey the last few years across the river from Detroit in Windsor with the Windsor CompuWare Spitfires of the Ontario Hockey League.
He's breaking into the league at the same time Fitzpatrick in L.A., and they met in the Memorial Cup Finals last year, and a lot of scouts said there's two youngsters here, one in the St. Louis Blues system, one in L.A., and their presence will be heard in the very near future.
Of course, Jablonski, playing in the International Hockey League, is behind another youngster playing here in St. Louis, a rookie, and that's Vincent Riendo. The shot by Gino Cavallini right on. And of course, the #1 goalie for the Blues is the veteran Craig Millen.
Well, you never have enough goalkeepers in any system.
Jablonski, a nice stop on the drive by Zinoyev. Here's Gino Cavallini, 8 seconds to go in the second period. Frolov intercepts and clears the puck out to center ice. And that's the end of the second period here at the arena in St. Louis.
Well, Ken, the Soviets are going to have to change their forechecking style. They're going to have to put two on the puck in the offensive zone, their offensive zone. Right now, they've got one forward in one corner, one forward in another corner, and St. Louis is having no problem beating that forechecking system. They're walking right out, and for the Soviets to get back into it, they've got to make an X and O, a tactical adjustment, or this is, St. Louis is going to control this game as it goes on through the third period.
In the second period, the Blues outshoot Dinamo Riga 11-9. The only goal in the period, Tony Herkis from Herb Ragland and Craig Cox at 6:46. And after 40 minutes, it is 4-0 Blues. Let's go to New York and Lee Zeidman. Play just underway at center ice here in the third period, and Herb Ragland shoots the puck in for the Blues. They lead Dinamo Riga here at the arena in St. Louis 4-0. Third period action just underway, and a chance for Yashin. He is on with Semenov and Lomakin. Here's Lomakin to Semenov. Oh, and he shoots just wide. Some great work by Lomakin, Yashin, and Semenov for Dinamo Riga. That's the forward line that plays for Dinamo Moscow in the Soviet National League. Delayed offside, but the Blues are changing. And Frolov's pass is offside, a delayed call as he failed to connect with Beliavsky. Now a chance for Kirch with Beliavsky, and he's stopped, and here's Steve Tuttle, the Blues rookie. Firing the puck in, Frolov back. Just past the 1 minute mark, period 3 here in St. Louis. Beliavsky. Nice move around Fedorko to Kirch, back to Beliavsky. He shoots, off the crossbar. Boy, did he move quickly, Herb, from the backhand to the forehand.
Yes, he quick stick on that thing, and Jablonski didn't get out to cut the angle as fast as he had wanted. He got a little help from his goalpost there.
Durden plays the puck right to Featherstone, back to Durden. Tuttle steals it. Fedorko breaks for the net. The shot, and a good save by Artur Irbe. Here's Bernie Fedorko, a master behind the net to Tuttle, and the puck poked away. And Dinamo Riga on the attack, Igor Akulinin. And offside is Dinamo Riga, and that stops play here early in the third period.
St. Louis had an excellent scoring opportunity. You saw some poise and a real good thought process by a youngster out of the University of Wisconsin, Steve Tuttle, as he came down the right wing, and he held the puck, and he held the puck, and he was hoping, as here we see the Tuttle situation right here. Now he's got to back it up a frame, and they get a little help on the crossbar, and then the puck moves out in St. Louis's favor.
And back to live action. The Blues lose the puck at center ice. Varianov can't get it in, and it's Dave Richter. He's on defense with Benning. McKegney up front with Ronning and Momesso. And Benning shoots it in. Ronning to dig it out, overskates it. Here's Zanarok for Dinamo Riga. Shudinov. Varianov. Sashov. against Benning. Shashoff pinching in Chudinov, and it comes out to center ice. Shashoff with it. He's in his 11th season in the Soviet National League. Now Zinoyev over to Chudinov. And Soviet Union team with commanding puck control here.
Well, this puck control they have is not going to make up a 4-0 deficit. They got to win that race to the red line and get some opportunities. And right now they're running the clock down, and well, that's not in their favor, that's in St. Louis' favor. So they must make a transition and win that race to the center red line to get some scoring opportunities, or else they're not going to close it.
We're ready for the face-off deep in the St. Louis Blues zone. This rather smallish crowd here in St. Louis really getting into things, and I think truly enjoying this game, and they're certainly happy to see their team, the Blues, with a 4-0 lead.
Well, when you talk about the arenas with some character and some charisma, this is one of them. The St. Louis Arena, they got a great organ player. You'll see this in the Chicago Stadium, and I tell you, that organ here and that song here can really pick up a crowd.
This arena, of course, is an arena that has been here a while. It was built in the 1920s, and they're talking about building a new arena for the Blues here in St. Louis early in the 1990s. And it's in the talking stage. Nothing definite yet. Hall trying to steal the puck. Can't from Ilmar Tomanis. Now behind the net, trying to get the job done past Losky, and he can't. Boy, the Soviet Union club looking for that long breakout pass, and Hates sets it up for Vito Lynch. Vito Lynch can't turn in. He's on a line with Hates and Tomanis. Here's Gordy Roberts, former Whaler, North Star, and Flyer, to Pazlowski, just offside on the left wing. Blues lead it 4-0. Goals from Brett Hall, Paul Cavallini, Herb Ragland, and Tony Herkus. Herkus has 2 assists to go along with his goal tonight.
Well, you see the young line here, Tomanis and Vito Lynch and Hates, young line of the Soviets, all 20 years old. I'm really impressed as you watch the progress they've made from game one. They're playing a little more confidence right now. They're getting used to some bumping and grinding, a little bit more of intelligent play in traffic. This exchange here will really help that line when they get back to the Soviet National League.
They're getting ready for the second half of the Soviet National League season back in the Soviet Union. This is sort of a halfway break for the Central Soviet Army team and Dinamo Riga touring North America. Here's a chance for Yashin to Durden. Lomakin taken out, and Herkus plays the puck around to Craig Cox, who has seen more ice time tonight than he has at any point in his career with the Blues. Durden leaves the puck dangerously, and Frolov taps it to center ice. Collision between Ragland and Durden. Now Cox after the puck with Frolov.
Well, Brian Sutter has juggled all his lines and tried to make 4 equal lines, and they want to use them equally tonight and give some of those players some ice time. As you pointed out, they don't usually receive, in the NHL season.
Frolov for the Dinamo Riga team. They trail 4-0 off Lomakin, and Dinamo Riga will change players. The St. Louis Blues trying to beat a visiting team from the Soviet Union for the very first time. They lost here in January of '78 to Spartak 2-1. Lost in January of 1986 to Red Army 4-2. They lead Dinamo Riga here in the third period tonight 4-0. Akulinin gives off to Belyavsky. Also, Kirch is on the forward line. Akulinin takes a hit from Richter. Belyavsky can't play it. Fedorko doesn't clear. And that shot from Zinoyev deflected wide. Belyavsky ridden to the boards by Benning. This is Alexander Kirch. Kirch trying to battle on Kent. Now Belyavsky overskates the puck with Benning falling down. And a hand pass stops play, and the Blues lead it 4-0. This is the NHL Soviet Union Super Series on Sports Channel. Ready for the face-off near Pat Jablonski, the Blues netminder tonight. 9,172 the announced attendance here at the arena in St. Louis. Here's Zanarok. In front into the crease. And Gingras clears the puck to Momesso.
I think your goalies will tell you, Ken, that it's easier to play in the National Hockey League than in the minors. Why is that? Because the players are very sound in their checking responsibilities. They're not running around as much. The goalkeeper can concentrate on the shooter, and they don't have to worry about an excessive number of rebounds or people going to the net or poor situational things where they become disorientated. So for young Patrick Jablonski, he might be saying to himself right now, it's easier here than it is in the International Hockey League.
He's been playing, as we've mentioned, for the Peoria Rivermen, brought into St. Louis for this game tonight, as the Blues regular netminders Greg Millen and Vincent Riendo get the night off. Riendo is the backup goalie, and it had been expected that he might see some action in this one, but not thus far. Here's Glenn Featherstone, who has played until a couple of days ago in the IHL himself. Now Momesso. Less than 13 minutes to go in the third period. It's 4-0 St. Louis. Haig's taken out by Paul Cavallini, and Zezel intercepts for St. Louis. Just flips the puck ahead. Frolov back for Dinamo Riga. Frolov on defense with Durden. Up front, Tomanis, Vito Lynch, and Hates. Ilmar Tomanis, in his second season, the 20-year-old shoots wide. Here is Brett Hull with Pazlowski. The pass to Pazlowski. Shoots, and Herbe makes the save. In front it comes. Ronning fakes. He shoots. Hits the post. And the puck pinned against the side of the net as the Blues come very, very close there.
Well, they were very close, and St. Louis is playing a very intelligent game right now. They're saying, listen, we've got 12 minutes and 18 seconds left. We don't need another goal to win. Let's be very sound without the puck and look for opportunities when they present themselves. And one came for them right now. Nice little 2-on-1 situation. Brzezowski tried to hold and tried to go the short side, but Herbe stayed with him. Then tried a little wraparound, but again, we pointed out with the Soviets down deep in their zone, they all get chasing a puck. They all look at puck. They don't pick up trailers. And the people out of sight, out of mind, those are the people that kill you. And St. Louis almost had another sort of a soft goal or a gift handed to them.
Here's Benning. He shoots and scores right from the faceoff. It is 5-0 St. Louis.
Ryan Benning can shoot a puck. There's no question about it. A young, offensively orientated defenseman, and they look for him to add a lot of things. And he led all the defensemen in scoring last night here. And when he gets an opportunity at top of that circle, he can bury it. And you saw the St. Louis forwards going in front of Herbe just by that little screen. And what the Russian defenseman didn't do, he's got to stop them from going in front of the net. He's got to take the sight lines and give the sight lines to his goalkeeper, or if not, the tipping and screening results. And there was a great screen set up by the Soviets, or excuse me, the St. Louis, forward.
It is 5-0 St. Louis. Pazlowski to Brett Hull. He'll shoot, and that's blocked by Shashov. One thing the Blues have had a lot of tonight, and that is room. They have enjoyed the room that the Dinamo Riga team has allowed them at both ends of the ice. And the Blues, who have struggled of late in the NHL regular season, have walked right through Dinamo Riga in this one. It is 5-0. Here's Shashov, the 28-year-old winger, to Yashin. Now trying to move around Zezel. Sergei Yashin. He tries to wrap it around, can't, and there'll be a penalty. A hooking penalty against the St. Louis Blues. Peter Zezel with 11:27 to go in the third period. Let's pause for a regional break. You're watching the NHL Soviet Super Series on Sports Channel. Zezel hooking, 8:33 of the third period. There have been only 5 minor penalties called in this game tonight.
You hate to come up with that type of a call. Sometimes it just situationally it just happens. And I think if you look at over the NHL season this year, that the teams that stay away from the lazy type of penalties are the teams that generally, are playing pretty sound hockey. lazy. I'm talking about the hooking and the holding and the clutching and grabbing, or the interference, or the things where there's not an overt physicalness associated with the penalties.
Power play for Dinamo Riga. The puck off the skate of Baryanov. He's bumped by Gingra. And Roberts loses the puck to the veteran Zanarak. And a chance at the point. In front, Zanarak. Roberts gets in the way. And Baryanov along the boards, battling Herkus. Zanarak with Roberts. Roberts wrestling with the Dinamo Riga player. Baryanov setting up. He's got Chudinov at the point. Back to Baryanov in front. A great chance, and Jablonski robs Zinoyev. Oh, boy, did Dmitry Zinoyev really have a chance there. Here's the drive from the point. It deflects right to Jablonski, and he makes the save again on Chudinov. It is 5-0 St. Louis. They're shorthanded for another 42 seconds.
Gingras putting on a nice display of skating there, running the clock down, effectively killing the penalty. Alabavior in his days, where he used to go around the net three times, and nobody could catch him, and nobody could put the pressure on him. I think Gaston is just saying, hey, look at me, I can do it.
This is Gaston Gingras' kind of game. A skating game wide open with a lot of space. He excels in that kind of atmosphere. 9:35 left in the third period here at the arena in St. Louis. The Blues dominating the visiting Dinamo Riga team, 5-0. Jablonski willing to wander. Frolov at the point. And out of the penalty box comes Zezel with Tuttle. And on the wing, Fedorko back to Zezel in front for Tuttle, and Frolov deflects the puck away. Here is Fedorko trying to get in front. He's taken out by Selyanin. On the attack, Dinamo Riga. Kirch. He sees Paul Cavallini, and that ends that rush. Akulinin. Beliavsky, a shot, oh, just wide, and Paul Cavallini gathers in the rebound. Outlet to Tuttle. Off the bench comes Zinoyev. A pass in front, fails to reach the slot area. Here's Benning pinching in from the point. Ryan Benning in front for Tuttle, well covered by Akulinin. 8:35 to go in the third period. And Dinamo Riga now with a puck. They represent the city of Riga in the Republic of Latvia. Riga city on the Baltic Sea. Very, very northwestern Soviet Union. Here's Tony Herkus. Raglan breaks for the net. The pass, and Herbe makes the save as Raglan goes into the boards. I believe the referee, Alexander Fedotov, has stopped play. The red light has gone on. Herb Brooks, the goaltender, kind of got pushed back over the goal line. We'll have to wait and see what referee Alexander Fedotov said. It might well be a goal. He hasn't disallowed it.
Well, Herkus really turned this defenseman inside out, and Raglan went hard to the net, which he can do. Big, strong forward, 200-plus pounds. And I think the whistle blew before the red light went on, and maybe Herbe carried the puck back in, or someone nudged him back in. But it was a great play by Tony Herkus, as he just gave that Soviet defenseman a little shuttle step, and he skipped by him. He's got a great pair of legs, and he waited and waited. And when that Herb Raglan goes to the net, and big and strong as he is, there's very few defensemen that are going to hold him off.
So there is no goal. Alexander Fedotov, the Soviet referee, really did not make a signal. And from where we are, and with our inabilities, I don't think I was able to hear or understand his verbal call. Down to 8:05 to go in the third period. St. Louis leading Dinamo Riga 5-0. Dinamo Riga will end their tour Saturday afternoon in Minnesota.
I don't think we could hear a whistle, obviously, Ken, but I saw his arms going in a wash-off manner, like no goal.
Dinamo Riga setting things up. Both teams are at full strength. Chudinov. Tomanis, and Herkus steals the puck. He's on with Cox, who takes the pass, and Raglan. Raglan breaks for the net again, circles behind the goal. Here's Herb Raglan. He shoots, and it deflects wide. Now Herkus taken out by Chudinov. Vito Lynch chases Raglan. Back to Benning. The shot, oh, and that deflected by Herkus off the glass and into the crowd. 5-0 St. Louis. Let's pause. NHL Soviet Super Series on Sports Channel. This is game 11 of the 14-game North American exhibition tour for this team, Dinamo Riga, and the Soviet Central Red Army team. 4 wins for the Soviets, 4 for the NHL, and a pair of ties. Momesso a shot, Irbay the save. And here comes Nikolai Varianov, giving the puck off. Varianov breaks for the net, takes the pass back from Zanarok, trying to feed back to Zanarok. Ronning can't clear. And finally, the puck comes to McKegney, and he plays it to center ice. Less than 7 minutes to go in the third period. Momesso flips it in, but over the glass and into the crowd. 5-0. The Blues lead it here in St. Louis. This Saturday on Sports Channel America, Dinamo Riga against the Minnesota North Stars, an afternoon game at 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. Then Central Red Army faces off against Kevin Dineen and the Hartford Whalers at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. 2 great superpower face-off matchups right here on Sports Channel America, the network of the NHL. Be sure to check your local listings for the regional game in your area. Ken Wilson with Herb Brooks in St. Louis, where the Blues have dominated Dinamo Riga.
Well, they're dominating, no question, but I have to, question the tactics of the Soviets. They're failing to adjust. They're not putting the pressure on St. Louis as one should when you're down. They're playing a system like they're up by 5 instead of down by 5.
Akulinin, Kirch, Belyavsky. Belyavsky's slap shot and a pad save by Pat Jablonski. 5-0 St. Louis. Chudinov, his shot, Jablonski looks for it, may have gotten a piece of it, and play is stopped. And Pat Jablonski has been outstanding here tonight for the St. Louis Blues, and he has it in his scrapper.
Well, you'll see the St. Louis defensemen play quite well in front of the net, taking the people out of there, trying to give some room for Jablonski. Didn't get a lot of room, but he got enough to see the puck. Now, it'd be nice for this young man to get that shutout when he's called up to play the Soviets. He's got 6 minutes and 5 seconds to do so. He'd love to go back to Peoria and tell the guys, hey, you should have seen me in the big leagues. And I know his coach down there, Wayne Thomas, would be very proud of him. And the youngster is playing well enough to get that shutout because he's getting some very good help in front of him by the St. Louis defensive corps, and also the St. Louis forwards are playing a very intelligent game, especially in their neutral zone, and they're not giving the Soviets the holes to jump into, and they're having a hard time penetrating with any type of manpower advantage or any type of situation where they can be as creative as they would like.
This is the line for Dinamo Riga of Tomanis, Vitolinch, and Hates, 3 20-year-olds from the Soviet Republic of Latvia, where we mentioned Riga is. There are 5 Latvians on this Dinamo Riga team.
And when you talk about the great Latvians, you have to talk about Helmut Balderas from Riga, played up with the Soviet national teams and Olympic teams, and was a former Soviet Player of the Year. He was really one of the great athletes ever to come out of the city of Riga.
St. Louis Blues ice the puck. Frolov touches it, and with 5:22 to go in the third period, we'll have a face-off back near Pat Jablonski. Frolov, the young defenseman. This defense corps, very, very young for Dinamo Riga. We mentioned earlier Vladimir Durden at age 30, the oldest player on this team. So it's a very, very youthful team under coach Vladimir Yerzinov.
We could talk about the Soviets having to play 7 games in 12 days and traveling, but the NHL teams they're playing have also been playing within their league, and they've had the same type of games, the same travel schedules. It's just as tough on the NHLers as the Soviets.
Tuttle trying to keep the puck in, and he's unable to. Now trying to gain a face-off, and Fedorko springs the puck loose. Back to Steve Tuttle. His shot deflects just wide off Gino Cavallini. Now less than 5 minutes to go here at the St. Louis Arena in the third period, and the Blues lead Dinamo Riga 5-0. Blues getting 3 in the first period, a goal in the second, and a goal from Brian Benning here at 7:45 of the third period. Here's Brian Benning with a puck. The Blues' young defenseman to veteran Bernie Fedorko, and then the return pass hops over Benning's stick. Tuttle crashes into the corner, and Zanarok starts out for Dinamo Riga. The Varianov with Shashov. Here is Zanarok to Shashov. Oh, Jablonski just gets a piece of that shot. A bouncing puck, Zanarok. Looking for an open man, back to the point. Oh, Jablonski robs Selianin. Boy, Zanarok made a nice play to set up the defenseman. Varianov.
Couple big saves for Pat Jablonski. I'm sure that Brian Sutter on the bench is saying, come on, guys, let's check for this youngster. Let's help him get that shutout. Don't let him get anything at this stage of the game.
Bernie Fedorko with 3:50 remaining in the third period. They say that the puck could have been played by Sergei Selianin, so there'll be no icing as the two teams change players on the go. Igor Akulinin, the 23-year-old centerman, loses the puck, and this is Gordy Roberts with Gaston Gingras. Up front, Herkus, Raglan, and Cox. They have seen a lot of ice time for the Blues tonight. Here is Herb Raglan, and the puck deflects to Craig Cox. Herkus behind the net, trying to kick the puck in front, hits the back of the cage. Raglan leaves the puck for Herkus. Akulinin takes him out. Cox trying to make a nifty move, can't. Leaves the puck for Tony Herkus. Akulinin all over Tony Herkus, the two centermen battling. And in the corner, Beliavsky for Dinamo Riga. Out to Alexander Kirch. Up the middle to Dmitry Frolov. He's taken down by Gingras, and this is Gordy Roberts. Akulinin keeps the puck in. Pat Jablonski leaving it for Gingras. Former Maple Leaf, former Canadian, Gaston Gingras. Boy, he could play on any Soviet team, couldn't he?
There's no question. He provides the St. Louis defensive corps with that much-needed mobility. He's a very good point man on a power play. And his partner tonight, Gordy Roberts, is playing a very strong game.
Here is Momesso with a bouncing puck, and Akulinin sends Alexander Beliavsky on the go.
St. Louis, again, they're just going to run this clock down. They played very well without the puck. They're a very conservative game plan in the neutral zone, closed the gaps on the Russians, protected their defensive blue line very well, and when need be, young Pat Jablonski has come up big for them.
2 minutes to go here at the arena in St. Louis. The Blues have outshot Dinamo Riga 28-25. They lead it 5-0. First period goals from Brett Hull, Paul Cavallini, and Herb Raglan. A second period goal from Tony Herkus, who has a 3-point night, and a third period goal from Brian Benning.
Brian Sutter said his hockey club would show up tonight. There's a lot of pride at stake, and St. Louis has played with that determination and a certain pride that they want to put on that sweater. They have to come to work, and not only that they worked hard, but they played very, very intelligent style of hockey tonight.
Pat Jablonski, the 21-year-old goalie for the St. Louis Blues tonight, has certainly been a big story here. He is 1 minute 31 seconds away from shutting out Dinamo Riga of the Soviet National League. And then after this game, it's back to the Peoria Rivermen and the International Hockey League for Pat Jablonski. But after this showing, Herb Brooks, that might not be for long.
Well, we don't know that, but whatever it's going to be, I'm sure that he's impressed. You know, the coaches here, along with the general manager of St. Louis, Ron Caron. I like his style. I like his size. He's very knowledgeable in the net. He moves very well. And I can see where he took his junior club to the Memorial Cup finals last year.
Selianin, Vito Lynch, Tomanis. Tomanis shot. Good save with a blocker by Jablonski. Vito Lynch's shot goes wide. Hayden's trying to center against Benning with a minute to go in the game.
You can see that his fundamentals are very sound, and again, I would like to just tip my hat to his coach down in Peoria, Wayne Thomas, the former NHL goalkeeper, and that's why I think every organization in the National Hockey League should have that goalkeeper coach someplace within the organization. Maybe as a scout, maybe as assistant coach, maybe as a head coach, but these goalkeepers need that fundamentals. They need to be polished. They need a refresher course all the time.
Less than 30 seconds to go here in St. Louis as the Blues will defeat Dinamo Riga, the first time that the St. Louis Blues have ever defeated a team from the Soviet Union. And their fans here at the arena very much enjoying the way this game has gone tonight. Marianov for Dinamo Riga, getting the puck ahead to Sashov, down to 4 seconds to go. And that'll do it. Hungry for victories, the St. Louis Blues and their fans, and they get a shutout tonight in front of Toledo, Ohio native Pat Jablonski, a first-year pro goalie. And there are smiles galore here in the Gateway City tonight.
St. Louis played very well. They acquitted themselves very well. Their coach said, even though it's an exhibition game, we're going to show up because anytime you pull on the sweater, we want to put our best foot forward, and they did that tonight.
Now the traditional handshakes at center ice. The Blues get back to NHL play against Philadelphia here Saturday night. And Dinamo Riga plays their final North American game Saturday afternoon against the North Stars in Minnesota. Pat Jablonski, a 21-year-old, just out of junior hockey. Boy, does he have to be happy. He had to be nervous coming into this game, and he acquitted himself extremely well.
Well, he really did. The goalkeepers will tell you, when you play in the National Hockey League, sometimes it's easier because of the knowledge of your defensemen, the fact that your forwards check very well. In the minor leagues, of course, they're all in the learning stages, basically, and it can be a little disorientated down there. But tonight, everything was in sync for the St. Louis Blues.
Pat Jablonski, the big story for the St. Louis Blues. The final tonight, the Blues 5 and Dinamo Riga nothing. The final tonight here at the arena in St. Louis, the St. Louis Blues 5 and Dinamo Riga from the Soviet Union nothing. Shots on goal in the third period, Dinamo Riga 9 and the St. Louis Blues 4. The only goal in the third period came at 7:45. Defenseman Brian Benning scoring, Peter Zezel and Brett Hull picking up the assists to round out the 5-goal performance tonight by Brian Sutter's St. Louis Blues. Ken Wilson along with Herb Brooks back at the arena. Hope you enjoyed the game tonight. And after the 4-1 victory by the Blackhawks in Chicago last night over Dinamo Riga, the Blues come up with a similar trouncing. And I think this Dinamo Riga team, Herb, does not quite look like the same team we saw when they started their tour out in Calgary and Edmonton.
Well, no, they had a first couple games are very strong. But what they failed to do, they don't adjust their systems according to the score. They're down and they play the same way. They're up and they play the same way. And it played right into St. Louis's hands because when they were up, they closed the gaps. They took all the little holes away from the Soviets that they like to have and that they really need to get their offensive going. So St. Louis, in my estimation, played a very intelligent game, and I don't know what the Soviets were thinking about tonight because they were not a very analytical, intelligent hockey club, especially when they fell behind early.
Well, it was so clear that the St. Louis Blues did a fantastic job forechecking in the Soviet zone, and on the other hand, Herb, and you made this point so dramatically, the St. Louis Blues, who in the NHL play get hemmed in often in their own end, were able to freewheel out of their own zone. And when you let a team freewheel, boy, it's a lot easier to get that offense going.
Well, there's no question, and some of the finesse-orientated St. Louis defensemen handled the Soviet forechecking at will tonight, and as I said, the Soviets didn't put more pressure on the puck in their forechecking patterns, and Soviets just countered. The Russians failed to counter intelligently, and the Gaston Gingras and Gordy Roberts and Brian Bennings, they just touched the puck. They walked out of their zone all night long, and then conversely, when the Soviets had the puck, the St. Louis Blues defense moved up into the neutral zone, closed the gaps very intelligently, and they just created turnovers in a very intelligent way.
You made the point early, Herb, and I think it was a very good one. Brian Sutter tonight utilized a lot of players who don't see a lot of ice time. In fact, one of his prized rookie defensemen, Tom Tilley, who's been tired lately, didn't even dress. And what this does for St. Louis in terms of the rest of the NHL season, it boosts the confidence of a lot of fellas who really need their confidence boosted.
Well, there's no question. He tried to spread the wealth amongst 4 lines tonight to make sure that everybody got involved in the game. But St. Louis has been struggling over the last 6-7 games. They wanted a good effort tonight here. They wanted some momentum coming out of this game, carrying over into the next NHL's game.
Well, the Blues get that momentum. They beat Dinamo Riga by a score of 5-0. The Soviet NHL Super Series continuing.
Gretzky.
And they score with 2 seconds left.
Lemieux. Burke.
Shot, save, Burke.
LaFontaine. Dineen.
Fires in front, they score!
Hextall. Savard. Every hit, every shot, every save. With more games than ever before, watch the NHL's brightest stars shine. They are the elite teams of the Soviet League, Central Red Army and Dinámo Riga. They're coming to North America to challenge the Edmonton Oilers, Los Angeles Kings, New York Islanders, and more. East meets West in this clash of hockey titans. Saturday night, Kevin Dineen and the Hartford Whalers collide with the Soviet hotshots, Central Red Army, and the high-powered KLM line in the Super Power Face-Off. Live at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, exclusively on Sports Channel, Saturday.
Dinámo Riga now 1 win, 4 losses, and 1 tie in their North American tour as they lose here in St. Louis to the Blues tonight by a score of 5-0. The Blues, as we mentioned, used a lot of players who don't frequently play a lot, and we saw some things, Herb Brooks, from some of Brian Sutter's players that we typically wouldn't see in an NHL game, or things maybe that he would like them to do more often. And the first man that comes to my mind is Brett Hull. Here's a fellow who typically winds up and lets her go. Tonight he was playing some finesse.
Well, he was. There's a lot of give and goes in the ice, and this is the first goal that really propelled St. Louis and gave him some confidence. Brett Hull just a little nice little drop pass, and he walks in from the goal line, picks a rebound right out of the air and bags it in. And everything happened after that in St. Louis's favor. And Tony McKegney now has got a semi-breakaway, and he gets a good shot off and comes up with this old rebound, throws it off the short pipe, and Greg Cox goes right between his legs. Cavallini jumps on a loose puck. Where the Russians are, I don't know.
That makes it...
They got to pick him up, and this is a problem. Cavallini buries them.
That makes it 2-0 at 9:51 of the first period. Late in the first period, Herb Ragland scores.
Well, Ragland just stepped off on top of the circle and got some good wood on a shot, and Herbe didn't come out and cut the angle down. Simple as that. And the knowledge of a goalkeeper around the net is so important, and Ragland just drilled it. He just picked that short side, and it was just right behind him before he could move.
Here's the only goal of the second period, Tony Herkus.
Well, Herkus, again, if you don't take his body, he's dynamite. And Herbe doesn't use his stick the way he should, and maybe a poke check, and Herkus just a little wraparound and found that far corner wide open.
Now Brian Benning, the only third period goal.
Well, again, the Russians, too many soft spots. Nobody's following the puck. They're not covering the points the way they should. And Benning just teased one up, and he was set up by a nice pass, and also the St. Louis forward going to the net, causing this screen, and Benning just buried it.
Well, we'll be back to wrap things up here at the arena in St. Louis, where tonight the Blues beat Dinámo Riga 5-0. Well, that's the story here at the arena in St. Louis tonight. Once again, the final score, the St. Louis Blues 5 and Dinámo Riga from the Soviet Union 0. Fans, remember, tomorrow, women's college basketball excitement comes your way when the Tennessee Lady Volunteers square off against Vicki Orr and the Auburn Tigers. That's at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Then on Saturday, Dinámo Riga plays their final game in North America, going up against the Minnesota North Stars. That's an afternoon game at 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. Also on Saturday, Central Red Army faces off against offensive gunner Kevin Dineen and the Hartford Whalers at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Be sure to catch all these great matchups right here on Sports Channel America. For Herb Brooks, this is Ken Wilson. Thanks for joining us tonight in St. Louis. So long until next time. You've been watching the NHL on Sports Channel America, the network of the National Hockey League.